Hello there and welcome to the Drex Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Drexter Dupre. I'm here with Joe Yardley. Joe, how are you?
Hello, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay. I was in high fidelity yesterday at the Power Rangers fan VR event where the actors of the upcoming Power Rangers movie reboot of the television series answered fan questions.
That sounds interesting.
Very exciting, right?
Well, if you're into the Power Rangers.
Or if you're 12 years old.
I vaguely remember them.
I'll comment a little bit later on it because it was certainly interesting use case of virtual reality for something like this to connect fans with actors or celebrities. There were a handful. There were about 50 people. It was very laggy. There was definitely a deja vu, Second Life deja vu in the sense of the lag. Also, in this type of use case, because I remember there were a bunch of William Gibson, author of Neuromancer, many other books, appeared in Second Life one time. Kind of a front row access to kind of a celebrity, I guess. I guess we'll see more of this stuff.
I love the idea. I mean, Power Rangers isn't my cup of tea, but when the new Alien movie comes out, I can imagine us in Sunstar, of course.
with Ridley Scott, and he's answering our questions.
Yes, and some of the actors in a spaceship sort of surroundings. And an audience full of aliens. That would be quite funny.
And at the end, you get killed or eaten by the aliens.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But, because at first, when you hear there's a Power Rangers, unless you are one of those people who really loves that, you're not going to be very interested. But the second someone mentions, what if they did it to this movie or television series, you go, You're
right. It's really, that is totally true. I mean, the reason, again, I completely acknowledge that the reason why I was underwhelmed was because of the subject matter. You're absolutely right. If there
and the
was,
lag.
Yes, that has to be resolved, but I would not mind having front row access to someone I admire. Let's say Kiefer Sutherland in a Jack Bauer setting.
Your secret male crush. Besides Ebbe.
Exactly. Kiefer Sutherland interviewed by Ebbe Aldberg on the set of 24 season 4. That would be just insane.
Drax would be so happy.
Yeah, first front row access in VR.
You'd be so giddy.
Okay, wait. So let's first things first. Today on the show we have Sam Watts from Make Real 3D. This is a company out of Brighton in the UK.
I love Brighton.
I know they have a nice pier there.
Yes, I've been there.
It was replicated in Second Life one time.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. It's the basis for the arcade gacha.
I hate gacha, but I love that pier.
Sam and his company, they make VR solutions for training in industry and education and public relations. They made, for example, an interesting VR experience for McDonald's, Joe, where kids could immerse themselves in the farms where their food comes from.
I love McDonald's.
Yeah. You know what? They made like these plants where the hamburger buns grow, so the kids really learn where their buns come from. No, I'm just kidding.
Can you imagine a virtual reality experience where you are actually the animal that is turned into hamburgers?
I was at Sundance in 2016, and there was a 360 experience where you are in a slaughterhouse, and I didn't do it because I had 3 people tell me they literally threw up and became instant vegetarians when they saw that.
And you like your meat too much.
Yeah, it's the same thing like with Jack Bauer. I'm just too much of a hippie to admit that I like Jack Bauer torturing people if they give up where the bomb is. So
Yeah, it is. It is interesting though, because if a underground vegetarian faction makes a VR experience like that in a few years, and they put it online as a fun game for kids, we're gonna have a vegetarian generation.
I think you're putting a finger on a very interesting aspect of actually for that to happen, and I hope that actually that happens because the playing field needs to be leveled a little bit more so that people can can create, just like the indie game, movement or phenomenon where serious games came out of, and people. My friend Susana Ruiz, who teaches at UCSC in Santa Cruz now game design, created a game about famine, and so but those are interesting possibilities. Let me actually we should have Susana Ruiz on and talk about that next time. Sam from Real 3D, who is going to be in the bulk of the show, is also going to talk about GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco that just wrapped last Saturday. They had 2 days dedicated to VR, and that was called VRDC, with panel discussions and workshops. And I actually wasn't aware that this cost extra to get in there, to get out to all these panels. And there was a Linden panel on Amazon Death Day. There were 2 Linden engineers with Sansa shirts on.
Was that the day when everything stopped working at Amazon?
You are really an investigative journalist.
Because, is it a coincidence? Linden's go chat on some sort of Amazon meeting sort of day, and suddenly Amazon stops working, Second Life stops working.
Absolutely. So Sam will talk as in his role as a VR business owner, as he deals with sort of talking with the sort of uninitiated potential VR client. We're going to talk a lot about that. How do you give people realistic expectations? We're going to talk a little bit about GDC, some of the announcements that happened, and a tremendous deja vu is happening at this moment in time, Joe, because remember the Gartner hype cycle?
No.
Okay, let me educate you. The Gartner hype cycle from Gartner.com, a consulting outfit for the tech industry. They analyze where the busts and booms happen, I guess. The Gartner hype cycle is comprised of the innovation trigger, the peak of inflated expectations, the trough of disillusionment, the slope of enlightenment, and then the plateau of productivity.
I do know that, yes. I was thinking about gardeners.
Exactly. So they did that for 3D printing. They do it for all sorts of things. And they did it, of course, for Second Life. And now I read an article where it is stipulated that we are possibly in the trough of disillusionment when it comes to VR. What is cited is the fact that Oculus has pulled headsets from 500-something Best Buy stores, and one journalist in the Washington Post was not impressed by Magic Leap. Obviously, another aspect of this is the cited in this article on siliconangle.com, we'll link to it, is that there is a lack of experiences. And that brings us to our first topic after I'm going to read a little bit of our sponsors. The first topic is, of course, the Sansar video, but let's just give a shout out to the sponsors. There's a whole bunch of sponsors, okay, dear listeners, and you should go and shop because they support this show, and you can support this show as well. If you want to become a voluntary subscriber, it's $100 Linden per month. Ping us, and we'll drop you the device where you can help us out. You can also purchase some really cool Drax merch. Hats and shirts.
Don't talk like your industry. You're not 12. You're a grown man. You're not some sort of, cool guy.
I was at the Power Rangers event yesterday. Maybe I am 12. Justin Esparza from Carvel Design is doing amazing featured images every single week. I mean, I want to kind of just print them and hang them up on my the basement wall here before my mom takes them down. Justin is doing an amazing job of sort of distilling the gist of the show every single week. So go to carveldesign.com or say hi to Justin in SL. Main topics, Sansar video. There's a promotional video out, and it was not made by me. Some people think I made it. I didn't. It's a solid piece, but it's also not very personal. It's not a criticism. This is maybe needed. What do you think of this Sansar video? It shows a bunch of scenes, some of the stuff we have already seen. It shows people interacting with the world, and it has a tagline, created reality, and it's narrated by a British person.
As every video should. As someone who's been to film school for 4 years
And whose parents are in marketing.
advertising, and who has run a production company and made film and television for a few years, I think it's all right.
Okay, you have proper qualifications. Now
Yes,
go on.
I know what I'm talking about officially. I think it's a pretty good video. You have to keep in mind that this is meant for outsiders. Or for people with at least some interest in VR, not for second lifers, not for for people who are already in VR and know all the ins and outs. This is a teaser. This is to make you go, "Oh, I'd like to give that a try." And I think that it does that. You see many different experiences. They make it very clear that this is built by people, by users, and what they're saying is, "Look, this is what it looks like, and you can come and build stuff. Come and check it out." And at the end of the video, I was thinking, yeah, I'd like to check it out if I had a bloody computer. So, I think it's a pretty decent video. It looks smooth. It looks professional. Of course, there are things that could have done better. There are things where you look at it and you think, well, I've seen that done. I've seen it look better somewhere else. But there are also some very stunning visuals. So I'm
now,
interested.
what do you think? Because my friend Michelle was on the show. She's in High Fidelity a lot. She says, please, enough with the hyperbole.
Something is coming. Something revolutionary. And it's unlike anything the world has ever seen before.
Now, what about that? I mean, is that maybe something they can shoot themselves in the foot, or is this just normal and everybody does it?
The thing is, if this is done by the American Hollywood voice guy, something's coming.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be throwing up in a bucket. But, this is said by an English lady. So I go, oh, really? But it's a bit much. It is if we make a video in the film and television business thingy, we try to shy away from that sort of thing a little bit. I mean, you can use it, but don't overdo it. Something is coming, something exciting. That's fine if you're going to do, the next season of The Walking Dead.
Also, another thing is that several people have pointed out to me that that the avatars are not great, and they remind people of Blue Mars.
I've never seen Blue Mars, but there are moments when the avatars look pretty good and when they're pretty bad. It really depends on the angle they're filmed with. I mean, the woman looks a lot better than the guy. I mean, he has got this stick-on Ken hair.
That's true. That is so true. Mm-hmm.
She looks pretty good, but then he stands there like a dork, and you think, that sort of unbalances things.
People from the men's rights movement, they will not be attracted to this answer. No, but also...
we end with a close-up, and we see that the woman is a pretty good avatar, pretty decent. She talks in sync perfectly, which is, of course, good, even though, we're watching a video, so... Keep in mind, this could be edited and cheated.
This was edited, and the sync could be better. I mean, I'm so crazy about this stuff. There's a little thing, tiny little microsecond where it's not in sync, but that's fine.
But it's still pretty impressive. I'm a little bit freaked out by the fact that she's not, she's not blinking her eyes at all. But
Stepford
I think
Wives.
Yeah, but if you look at a close-up of her, you think those avatars are all right. Not stunning, they're not blowing my socks off, but it's a pretty good avatar. But when you see them together or in a different angle, they sometimes they look a little bit less, and you wonder, why did they pick these? What do the others look like if you get closer?
And what do you think about the interaction? Because I think, this is a challenge that I obviously have also with Second Life, and it's not getting any easier because to describe for an outsider something so experiential, how do you do this in a linear video? I mean, here they basically have a shot of the camera goes into an Oculus, and then boom, we're in the world, and then they just cut between people who work, who either have just a headset on, you don't know what they're looking at, or they're working at the desktop in desktop mode. I mean, is this effective to show that we're talking about immersion?
Yeah, well, and this is where you have to go into cliche, I'm afraid, if you want to. It's not very original, but if you just put in one or two scenes of someone in Paris and someone in London, you know, put the stupid Eiffel Tower out the window so you know, and they're both wearing a headset and they're both laughing, and we get this cut screen of them, and then we get the cut screen of them as avatars having a romantic date, or watching a movie in a cinema, or shooting each other, or throwing bowls at each other at the beach, and you've got it. You know, you understand it right away. You understand, wow, these people are far away, but in virtual reality they're together. So yeah, you sort of miss that. It's difficult to put social interaction in a video. So
well, I have one in the pipeline where I think, I mean, I don't want to kind of pat myself on the back continuously, but I'm going to do it right now. I have one in the pipeline, and I hope they release soon, that I think effectively shows exactly that, and it's doable, but it's definitely a challenge.
But you could also combine. You could have combined a scene like that with another scene that I missed in the video, and that is something that shows gaming. Keep in mind that the majority of people in VR right now are there because of games, and Sansar could, I haven't seen their gaming tools yet, but this could be, a place where kids and YouTubers with millions of followers could create their own VR games.
Absolutely.
Even if you just suggest that, maybe that's not possible at all yet in Sansar. I know they've got some sort of cannonball shooting game. Some journalist wrote about it. But you could combine it with this social interaction of these two people shooting at each other, because shooting each other is fun. Because then you already see this guy or this girl saying, look, this is a game I built, come over from Paris in real life and I can shoot you here in this dungeon or whatever. Because, if you can show that people will be able to build their own games, then you've got a winner.
Does it, I think we kind of jokingly mentioned this last time, should Linden Lab in general, and maybe more specifically with these videos, should they not build on the success of Second Life? Or should they have a side campaign, mention it, or is it dealt with the fact that journalists who pick this up as they have will always, of course, mention Second Life in the accompanying article?
It is a bit of a double-edged sword, of course, Second Life, because it has a bad reputation, but also a good reputation. So, but I think you have to, as Linden Lab, you have to embrace and accept that people will always bring up Second Life. Perhaps in a decade they forgot about it. But, if you're talking about Sansar, if you're anywhere, an article, a story, whatever, they're going to talk about Second Life, or at least the journalists are thinking about it. So I think you should just embrace it and say, we've had the biggest, oldest user-built virtual reality world there is, and now we're upping it. And you just put that in there, because people are going to think about it, and they're just going to think about the bad side. So why not throw the good at it before they can?
Very, very good point from a marketing professional. And we have so much material with Sam later that we have to. We just have time for one more topic here. I mean, I already mentioned the Power Rangers event. I'm going to link to a little bit of video that they shot live in high fidelity as we go to air yesterday, which looks actually pretty smooth, not like the lag I experienced, but they ran that stuff locally. You gotta watch that video and determine for yourself if that's the future of virtual reality, or if this is just Second Life with hand movement. Now, the other item here is that the Second Life homepage has been revamped, which is great because it features landing pages that correspond to your area of interest. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. But
Also, it features a lot of Drax Files videos, which is also a really great
wonderful.
idea.
Yeah. I did one thing, of course. I tried the roleplay page.
So if you go to roleplay, I'm going to click on it. There's, wait a minute. First, you got to go to social. You click on social, and then you go to...
No, you click on entertainment.
Oh, if you click on social, I see Joe Yardley. Interesting. Click on social. Meet the Second Life community. Ellie Spot, Joe Yardley, editorial clarity.
I'm the least social person in Second Life.
Nah, that strikes your ego. That's hilarious.
That is quite cute.
Wait, so you go to entertainment, right? And then you have music, role play, games?
And what do you get?
Okay, let's go to role play. Let me guess what we're getting. How about, vampires.
Yeah, not just vampires, but vampires, and vampires.
But, these are all different, generations of vampires. They're not really interrelated vampires. They're like the Habsburgs.
Anyway, there is more to Second Life roleplay scene than just vampires. I know the vampire theme was, hip a few years ago. But, and I'm not saying that just because I think 1920s Berlin should be there. Mm-hmm. But, there's just, check the destination guide, put some of those in there as well, please.
As long as every one of these landing pages has a video made by me in it, who the hell cares? So I'm going to get off this show and make a video about vampires.
You go and do that.
All right, so that's the Second Life landing pages. Let us know what you think.
Oh, yeah, and of course the forums are still offline.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So there's some glitches. The forums are offline. Is that also still related to the Amazon outage? We don't know.
Because of the conspiracy.
Why did Donald Trump shut down Amazon Web Services? I didn't hear about that. We got to go to the interview with Sam Watts, the owner of Make Real 3D out of Brighton, and I spoke with Sam about GDC. He went to GDC 1 week of gaming madness with 2 days of VR. A lot of announcements coming out of there, and we're going to link to a bunch of articles that kind of summarize them. As you probably heard, there's price cuts in Oculus. There's HTC Vive as a payment plan. Microsoft and LG are teaming up for a low-cost headset. So it's all about the VR portion anyway. Seems to be all about gear, moving units, as they say. This was a week of gaming, a week with some, I don't know what the numbers are, actually. I think possibly about 60,000 people in that, the Moscone Center. Anyway, I was interested in Sam's take coming from Europe, coming with European sensibility, coming with a European business that may have to fight other battles than people in the bubble that are all drunk on Kool-Aid, or VR Kool-Aid. Here's Sam Watts.
The feeling about VR this year is a bit more muted and a bit more sensible than what it was last year. Last year was obviously the year of the launch of VR, or launch of commercial VR, with the 3 major headsets coming out and a couple of others on the side. Obviously, we had Oculus Rift and HTC Vive and Sony PlayStation VR. Razer launched OS VR, etc. So it was a busy year last year. There was updates to Gear VR, etc. We had Daydream. Was that the end of last year?
It was the end, yeah. Why do you think it's muted? This is so interesting because actually I wanted to the first question I wanted to ask you was the trough of disillusionment, this article on siliconangle.com. And us Second Life enthusiasts, we went through that trough, and I guess we're still in it, I don't know. But so your sense was it was a little bit muted, but why? I mean, LG has a new headset that is cheaper, so more people will buy it.
It's muted depending on who you speak to. There's a lot of people still very excited and enthusiastic for VR, mostly people who are working in it. But if you look at media coverage, then it's definitely it's a lot less. Oh my God, it's going to be the best thing. It's going to make loads of money, and the hype train is rolling. But then there's a lot of media outlets who are very binary. It's either they're very positive or very negative, and there's no real grey area in between. And so a lot of people who were claiming the second or third coming of VR last year and how it was going to make millions and sell millions of units and be the next best thing at the beginning of the year, then suddenly sort of turned around and stabbed a knife in its back, saying, "Oh, VR's a failure, and it didn't reach these numbers that we predicted that it would do." So there's either something wrong with their predictions, or they were just massively overhyped in the first place. But I think there's a number of people who were, realistically expecting not like vast unit sales, and had a very sensible head on themselves. And, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It is really, unfortunately, the way the technology press, and maybe the press as a whole, even the political press, needs to have sort of this narrative seems to need the narrative of hyping something and then kind of predicting the downfall and then saying, hey, we told you guys that there was a downfall. You as a reader would say, wait a minute, but didn't you tell us in the very beginning that these super unrealistic expectations, weren't you part of the building up these super unrealistic expectations?
That's how a lot of tech coverage and marketing and PR happens in general. Look at a lot of the sort of gaming hype, sort of pre-orders opening years before the game was available, and just pushing and pushing and pushing, and like, this is going to be the best version of Shooty Bang Bang ever, and when it comes out, it's pretty much the same as the last one. Might run a bit faster with a slightly different scenario, but offering the same thing, the same guns, etc.
So we're talking about content. Let me just reference again this siliconangle.com. We put it on the blog, the article that says virtual and augmented reality plunge into the trough of disillusionment, and the article here cites as evidence of this that Oculus removed demonstration stations at Best Buy stores. That's the main thing. And then some Wall Street Journal article that was the columnist was not very impressed with the Magic Leap demo, which is the very secretive AR company. And the last thing here is the lack of compelling content, and I think that's what you're also referring to, that may be the issue, despite sort of these announcements that the prices are falling and everybody's saying, oh, people will pick up more headsets because the LG headset is going to be half the price of the Oculus, and the Oculus lowered the price. The consensus seems to be of the naysayers like yourself that the content is just not there.
Quite a lot of points to cover there. I'll try and address them in a logical order. One, I wouldn't call myself a naysayer. I would call myself a realist. And we just, we are very positive. The whole company that I work for, we are majoritively focused on VR. So if I was negative against VR in any way, I'm only damaging ourselves and our own outlook and ability.
I'm just trying to get a job at Fox News. That's why I'm trying to sort of morph my sort of skills as a moderator of a podcast in that same vein.
You're jumping in with clickbait headlines, essentially, which is a problem of the media revolving around the hype, and they need the clicks to get the ad revenue. So there's a whole discussion there about how the media operates in terms of representation and people being prepared to pay for quality journalism. But in terms of quality content as a whole, it's a really difficult one. It's been a problem of the games industry as a whole for a long time, in that you get a lot of gamers complaining that the next football game or the next FPS doesn't offer anything new, and AAA publishers are hugely risk adverse these days, and they don't want to stick their necks out and fund a title which they can't gauge or predict is going to sell it by the millions. But gamers they either decry. So this is broad, sweeping statements. I know not all gamers, etc. They decry the lack of originality, but then when the next game in the iteration comes out, they buy it in a bucket loads, and the highly original, interesting, arty indie titles, struggle to sell 5,000-10,000 copies and actually make any profit. So. But then it is easier and cheaper these days to make games and release games. Although with the Steam removal of Greenlight, I don't know how that's going to affect things. Some people think it's a good thing having a paid gateway. Other people just think it's people with the most money can then still release more crap onto Steam.
We talk about this quite often. I don't believe in that neoliberal mantra, the best content floats to the top. I think the people with the biggest pockets can make sure that their content floats to the top.
Well, I mean, I empty my cat litter regularly into the toilet, and I can assure you, it's mostly the shit that floats to the top.
That might be a good advertising slogan. But let's stick a little bit with GDC a little bit more. Is there anything that stuck out with you that was really exciting, or give me some examples and then either end with I could have saved the money for the trip, or
well, I mean, GDC this year was it was huge for VR news and announcements. Microsoft came out and revealed the first of their VR headsets that's incorporating the HoloLens holographic technology with the Acer headset. I didn't get to try it out. I didn't get to grab a golden ticket to get a free dev kit, but it's something that's very, very interesting. It's a low-cost system for Windows. They've actively said that they're not going to be blocking Oculus and Vive on Windows because, I mean, that would be absurd to even think that they would. But obviously, Oculus announced the reduction of price, $200 across the Rift and the Touch, to bring it down to under $600, which is a great step to making it more affordable for some people. It's still, obviously a long way to go from PSVR affordable, where you're looking at $700 in total for a PS Pro and a PSVR all in if you're starting from scratch.
Which seems to be I would say, the main reason for their success.
I mean, playing devil's advocate here, because we work a lot with Oculus, and I'm a big fan of what Oculus do, and I love their hardware and what they're trying to achieve. You have PSVR, then you have Oculus Rift and Touch in between, and then you have the Vive. And the Vive fanboys have always argued that the Vive is the true VR system because of the supposedly better room scale and tracking. And maybe this price cut in some people's eyes may help cement the idea that the Vive is the premium VR product. But people are still prepared to pay that money. But then if you look at PSVR, some VR, sort of diehards will say, it's only 1080p, it's not a very good system, it's running on a console, it's not as good an experience, but it's sold nearly 1 million units. The games are just as much fun once you're immersed and present. But interestingly, if you look at a lot of the games, most of the games are all seated gamepad based. And people, derided Oculus for that when they launched. It's like, oh, it's only gamepad, it's only seated, it doesn't do room scale. Vive came along, and it's all about room scale. At home, I don't have room for room scale. I have to cheat and put my arms over my futon to get 2.2 meters play space. Yeah, but at least it's on soft when I fall on it when I can't see it. So
I'm very glad that you bring this up, because I also think that, of course, naturally in marketing, this plays an important role, but realistically, most people will not be able to dedicate an entire room for their VR room.
no, I mean, I would very much like to. I'm looking at moving to a house with another spare room so I can do that. But, we have to be realistic in times of Brexit and everything else of what's achievable.
I'm planning to move to a basketball court, actually.
I did see a video shared earlier about how traditional Japanese houses have been waiting for VR for hundreds of years because they seem perfect for it.
That is, yeah. We'll put that on the blog. I saw it. That is actually quite brilliant. Yeah, we should have learned from the Japanese to be a little sparse and be a little easy on the knickknacks and shit.
You look at modern Japanese flats that are barely bigger than a shoebox. That's obviously conversely opposite, which is why Japanese games consoles started off with very short leads on the controllers. But going back to PC quickly, there was many other exciting things. Oculus had a huge, great booth. Google Daydream had a huge, great booth. I even actually got to see, touch, and use some 6th Sense STEM, which I never thought would happen. In the world of Touch and Vive, I don't see any point to their existence for PC VR usage, but for the Gear VR that they were attached to, it gave a medium of positional tracking and input on mobile, which, although it was somewhat laggy and not hugely accurate, it was still it was two hands. It was there. It was mostly 6DoF, and it worked as well as it needed to work. So that's going to be a very interesting area with mobile VR moving forward, is obviously getting decent motion tracked input.
The treadmills, and we interviewed these guys from Cyberith a while ago from Austria, and I haven't heard anything from the treadmill folks, from the Virtuix Omni. Did you see anything in the way of a treadmill?
No, I don't remember seeing any, but there's a few other input devices there. There was 3D Rudder there, which is kind of like a balance board, if you've seen that. You steer and move with your feet. And then there was a one-footed version, I guess. I can't remember what they were called. I made a joke that they would be 2D Rudder, I guess. But there was... but I do a number of events in the UK where there is a local company called WizDish who have a much smaller form factor treadmill device, which I've used on a couple of occasions, and it's perfectly comfortable and does the job of movement. Don't quote me, but I think it was something like 400 pounds tops packed up, so it was pretty light to carry around. Well, lightish anyway.
Now, you mentioned OSVR earlier.
Yeah.
Were they exhibiting? Because they're also, I'm just looking at this, they're also offering a discount, so everybody's obviously trying to get the units moving out there.
I've not seen any further updates from them beyond the release of their HDK 2. I think they're concentrating on getting the software more stable and working on better hardware through the firmware updates. But they are, because of the open nature of their platform, they're looking to partner up and enable others to take the headset further and integrate all other kinds of input and controllers and associated peripherals to go with it, but they didn't have a big presence there this year that I saw. We've worked with the HDK 2 in the past. Our game Radial G was bundled with the headset for a while upon launch, and the more headsets out there, the better. And it seems a lot more open and easy to mod and people to hack around and play around with, which there's a certain element of the VR community who want to be able to do just that.
lastly, about GDC, did you attend any talks?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have a VRDC ticket. I think you actually had to have a normal GDC ticket, and then you could get the VRDC ticket on top. But it was only 2 weeks before the event that I had it confirmed that I was going, and all the VRDC tickets had sold out. And by then, I'm not sure I would have been prepared to spend $1,800 on a ticket just to get to the VRDC bits. So it was very expensive. I'm sure that they were very useful and valuable talks. It's difficult in the UK because there's a small number of individuals able and willing to do talks, so you end up hearing the same talks over and over quite a lot at some of the events.
It's kind of a little bit upsetting that it's so exclusive and such a money-making machine. I mean, at the same time, why would I be surprised? But it would be nice to kind of have an aspect of leveling the playing field, maybe with these conferences, just to give access to people to give talks and sort of kind of collapsing geographies also in the sense that people can participate in these talks, maybe in VR even, so they don't have to fly all over the place. Can you imagine?
Yeah, obviously the greatest power of VR is to meet up in virtual spaces without having to step outside. So it makes great sense that a VR event should perhaps be in VR. Hopefully there are server loads or servers able to cope with the load. I've done some social stuff in the past where servers have struggled with 50 people, but that was before the days of brain's gone blank. What are they called? AltSpace and High Fidelity, etc. But maybe impromptu external talks in the park outside the event. But the American business model in terms of corporations and investment and is very different to how, well, I'm not sure about the rest of mainland Europe, but is quite different to how a lot of UK companies operate. And there's the opportunities certainly aren't there, or the level of investment. So the big noticeable thing when talking to a lot of US devs is how much their company is worth and how much they've been valued and how much the VCs are sniffing around, whereas we're focused very much on 100% ownership of our own company and live by the sword, die by the sword, and working our asses off to make our own profits.
I think that's quite fabulous. But on the other hand, I was at the Web Summit in Dublin just because I was meeting. I wouldn't normally go there a couple of years ago, but I met up with Linden Lab folks, and so that was interesting to me as an outsider because that was all about getting, kind of pimping yourself to investment money. And when I learned that they had to pay, 3,000. Euros for the booth for the day, and then they swapped them out the next day, and all these guys were gone. And like, oh my God, you're staying there? Me, come here! I got the best idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not really my cup of tea for sure, but investment is a funny game. It sounds great. You get money for having a value or having a worth, but a lot of investors, they will pressure you to spend that money quicker so that they can give you more for more equity of your company, and before you know it, you've ended up with a load of money, but you don't own your company anymore. But it depends what you want out of it. A lot of people obviously have a startup, sell it, go on to do a second, third, fourth startup, and they live for that cycle and for the generation of ideas and creation. I'm old and beyond that, I think.
Let me ask you, what is your sort of plan? And then go a little bit into what you guys are making. I mean, what are you making? Who are you making it for? And how do you actually retain, the ownership over what you have to contribute to the space?
Well, a lot of what we do is we will create bespoke learning and development and training applications for corporates and work with partners to build products as they need them. They end up owning the end products. We own the source and the knowledge and the tools and the ability to create that. And anything that ends up being an application or a process or a pipeline that gets generated along the way to have enabled that to occur. And we refine and optimize and find efficiencies for the next time. Which either allows us to develop faster or add more features, etc. But there's a lot of cost going into just R&D and understanding current and near future technology and their possibilities and what they can offer. But also a lot of cost of educating our partners as a whole so that they understand the different degrees of VR and how that can be beneficial to them.
So you mean when you work with a mid-sized company, let's say, and you deploy an experience or a world or a training tool, then you also part of the package that you offer is to train the employees or the people who then train the employees how to kind of train them or what to expect from that VR experience.
We'll do that as part of deployment, but we also do that at kickoff so that they understand and they're on board and they're sort of co-creating with us so that they come along for the journey to understand what it is that they're ultimately getting. And if you have buy-in from key stakeholders early on, then they're going to be a lot more accepting at the end rather than just opening Pandora's box right at the end and a surprise pops out. That's when you're going to get people turning around and going, what is this thing? I do not understand it. This isn't what I paid my money for. But it all depends upon the stakeholders and the age and how technology friendly they are. And we have some very technophobe partners, but we have some really open-minded partners.
A lot of interesting projects that you're working on. There is one project that seems to teach people about nuclear reactor safety procedures.
That's for EDF Energy, which is a large energy supplier in the UK and France, and they're building a nuclear power station in England at the moment, and they need to onboard all of their staff for what the company's doing and get them to understand the direction and where all this money's being spent over the next 10, 15 years. And this is all of their staff, anything from call center to meter readers to engineers to smart meter salespeople, etc.
This sounds like an incredible challenge because you have quite a large group of people with various knowledge of the subject matter.
Or none at all. They run a day-long course, and some of their employees, they were having their minds blown by the fact that they were learning for the first time that they're composed of atoms, and the course covers everything from structures of atoms, how fission works, the primary and secondary circuits, how nuclear safety, dealing with nuclear waste, as well as the company sort of direction and everything else. But we made it into an interactive 3D tablet app, so it was instructor-led, and then the pupils had their own tablet. Over the network, the instructor would be pushing the content through so that the student's tablet would show the next screen or scene. They had all different information, such as additional photos and videos that they could bring up at any time. But by doing it that way, they ended up saving about 2 hours per employee to get this training course done.
Pretty clear and should be a no-brainer that everyone in this space as a service provider, such as yourself, has a vested interest in not bullshitting the client with, I'm just summarizing our entire conversation in one sentence, because the snake oil salesman will ruin it for everyone if they raise these expectations in unrealistic ways, or just I don't know where I'm going with this thought. I mean, it's pretty clear. I was wondering these experiences that you're building, and I was just at an online event for Deutsche Welle talking about VR in education, and I was brought on to talk about Second Life and now Sansar, that is made by Linden Lab and High Fidelity. So there's a lot of virtual worlds coming on, not a lot, but there's a handful of virtual worlds coming online that promise to level the playing field. And there's always a kind of a level of anxiety similar to the music industry when GarageBand came onto the laptop. A lot of my engineering friends were going like, "Oh my God, that's the end of it." And for a lot of people, it was, because people didn't go in the studio anymore. When virtual worlds come online, and maybe Joe the plumber and his grandmother are going to start their own businesses offering services to create worlds or training tools, does that impact you at all? Does that worry you? Or you go like, I can take care of these amateurs?
No, I mean, I don't see it as a business threat. You have to see it as an opportunity to embrace. It's like, AAA publishers, they're not threatened by the indie game developers. It adds more choice and more variety, and overall creates more worthwhile value for money, and it's empowering for all. I don't want to necessarily have to work with and become a subject matter expert in every single field that I work in. And I don't want to try and pretend to people that I am that subject matter expert. And if Joe Bloggs and his granny want to show people how to fix the kitchen sink via their own AR, VR metaspace, then that's brilliant.
I actually just registered the website joeblogandhisgranny.com and .co.uk, just in case. You never know.
Yeah. People go online now, people watch YouTube videos of how to fix their sink, but, plumbers and electricians and everybody else, they still exist.
That's that is a really good analogy. Yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, some people say, "Hey, I would like to hire you to make this image video for my company.
Yeah.
How much?" And then you say a price, and then he says, "My cousin or my son's son with his iPhone 7 can do that, so why would I pay you?"
Yeah, I mean, but then the prices for those kind of things, you would need to do so many a year to make a sustainable business that can grow. It's probably not a worthwhile business venture anyway.
Okay, we're summarizing. It's a new world with a lot of robber barons and snake oil salesmen, but also very sincere realists like yourself. And I would include myself in that too. I'm certainly not a person who believes technology can save absolutely everything. There's a lot of other factors that need to be in place to save us as a human race. And on that dire note, last words.
Okay, well, my last words. I think the trough of disillusionment, it depends upon which cycle of VR you look at, because we're in the fourth cycle, so we're probably in the current trough of disillusionment. But if you look at VR as a whole, we're on the slope of enlightenment. As a company specializing in virtual reality, we have to be realistic, but ultimately strong in our message and honest in our intentions and operations, because anything that we do that potentially damages the adoption of VR this time around ultimately damages our company chances of success and continued operation. So we will just continue to work with the latest technology and deliver meaningful experiences to our partners and create exciting new games using the newest technologies to continue our public awareness and presence to continue to grow and foster VR as a whole and VR for good. And ultimately, those who are in it just for a quick buck will fall by the wayside, and those who have a crazy input hardware idea will fall by the wayside.
All right, that was Sam Watts from Make Real 3D. We're going to link to the projects that he was involved with and they're doing some amazing stuff, actually with plumbing, training plumbers in virtual reality. Makes total sense. No, I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm totally honest.
It does. I mean, it is. It is quite tricky to learn plumbing while a basement is flooding without flooding a basement.
We got to wrap up the show. So we had a member of your community passed away, Brie Hasp from 1920s Berlin, and you were trying to find out what happened with her. She disappeared from the grid.
Mm-hmm, yeah, she vanished last January. And she's been living in 1920s Berlin for years. So when she stopped paying her rent and not responding to any messages, we sort of knew this is not like her. This is weird. And it took us a lot of time, but we finally found out. We got in touch with her real life family, and we learned that she had passed away. And I liked that sometimes happens in Second Life, but I want to make sure that this is mentioned here, also on the website. Because it is so awful when someone and is a member of your community or a close friend and they vanish. That's why we want to share it as much as we can, so everyone in Second Life learns and all her friends find out that she's not coming back.
And this is really something that I think people outside of really these close-knit communities or gaming communities, in Second Life in particular, really may not understand that this is somebody who you may have never met in the physical world, but this is just as much a friend and member of your group as anybody physical. So it really, I've had that many times where I felt real anxiety of somebody not showing up or not responding to in-world messages. And yeah, Brie, I mean, I've never met her. We sometimes argued about Linden Lab policies passionately, and yeah, it's really sad. I want, in this connection, we're going to link to a page here from the official Linden Lab, from the Second Life wiki, Death and Other Worries Outside of Second Life, because this is something that I think everybody should think about. How do I bequeath my Second Life account and its assets in the event of my real-life death? I mean, this applies to all sorts of social networking spaces where you do have to have a document in place in order to get access to an account of somebody who passes away, because otherwise you will not get access to that account.
Yeah, Facebook has that as well. I just filled that in the other day to make sure that my sister gets my Facebook account.
Mm-hmm. And then she continues the harassing of others.
No, she's just going to write that I'm dead. And then the Facebook page will be put on hold or something like that. But yeah, I wrote a blog about this whole thing because recently it happened twice that someone simply just vanished. And sometimes you find out, sometimes you don't. And there is this opportunity for you to, make sure that one of your real-life family members gets your Second Life account. But if that is a real close family member and you've just died, they're going to have other things on their mind. They're not going to be too bothered with your internet activities and things like that. And it can be weeks or perhaps even months before they feel like writing on your Facebook page that something's happened, or answering emails from people who are in this virtual world that they don't understand. So I wrote a blog and I said, please get someone in Second Life, your best friend, one person you trust, and make sure they know who you are in real life, have your real life contact information, your real life Facebook page, things like that. At least know your name, and put the name of your friend in your profile, so that if, for instance, if I die or even just go to hospital for a few weeks, My friend Sonata Morales, she knows my real life Facebook profile. She knows my email. You do as well, Drax. So you will be able to find out pretty quickly by what's happening there, what's happened to me. And she can sort of make sure she can get in touch with Linden Lab. Please don't turn Berlin off. It may take a little while before one of her family members can be bothered to, look into what I wrote about that, things like that. So, even if Linden Lab has official options for this, please put it in your profile so that your friends can find out what happened.
Bree, rest in peace. We're ending on a positive, life-affirming note of that the Flepperettes dance troupe are doing a show. They're opening in Time Portal on March 12th at 11 a.m.
Yeah, they're summer break and they're coming back and they're fantastic. They're all doing all these vintage and retro dances and there's lots of pretty girls.
That's tomorrow as we go to air. And also, lastly, the community gateways are coming. They're a little bit delayed, but I heard that community gateways are coming based on that concept that I think was originally started in 2008. Where newbies are being funneled through various pre-approved community gateways. I guess you may indicate your interest in vampire roleplay, let's say, and then you're going to be coming through a vampire roleplay sim, and somebody else may indicate interest in historical roleplay, and they may be funneled through another vampire portal.
No, send them to Time Portal sim. Much better.
Okay, that's it for the show. Have a great weekend, everybody, and goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Time Portal, SL Artist, Warbug, Bay City You Know for Kids, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Caravel Design, The Cube Republic, What Next, Landscapes Unlimited, Fallen Gods Incorporated, and Death Row Designs. Thumbnail by Justin Esparza. Contact the show via Skype, DraxFiles, Avatar DraxFiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.